Hey everybody, this is Dayna OG from Arhar Football. Joining me for our little Zoomcast, as we like to call it, is Sonja Greenfield and Kate Arhar, also from Arhar Football. Lisa was supposed to be joining us. We don't know where she is, so we'll see. We're going to go on without her tonight. So we really felt like we needed to hop on, get our feelings out on a couple of things. We got some stuff and things we got to talk about just a little bit tonight. For an off season that had nothing going on, in the last week or so, all of a sudden, things are hopping up. Things are getting rolling, good and bad, I think.
Yeah.
Because there's been some great new signings with Cam going to New England. We have the new contract for Patrick Mahomes, but then we have the NFLPA telling the NFL they don't want to do any preseason games. And then today they want to take a 35% pay cut. So there's all kinds of interesting things to talk about. We're going to get rolling with it. First and foremost, I want to start with Cam going to the New England Patriots. And I want to start because what did I say? I said it forever ago. The only logical thing that could have happened in New England was to go out and get Cam Newton. After all the dust settled on all those other quarterbacks getting signed on other teams, this made sense. And you heard people, you guys know you did, heard people going, there's no way, those personalities, oil and water, it will never happen. But money and talent talks. And I think Bill Belichick saw through what was going on, because I personally feel like there was a little bit of a smear campaign going on for Cam Newton, and saw right through it, as Bill Belichick does. Well, I want to know what you guys think about this, because I'm thrilled. I think this is actually going to be a great spot for him to land, but I know not everyone feels that way. So, Kate, let's start with you. How do you feel about the new situation for Billy B?
Well, I like it because I think of all the quarterbacks that they could have signed in free agency, Cam was the only one that gives Belichick a chance to say, the winning has been about me and not Brady.
Exactly.
That there's going to be no excuses if they don't win, because Cam is a very high caliber quarterback. He's not some first or second year guy or somebody no one else wanted that is going to put a little more pressure on everybody. He's the perfect quarterback for that situation. They can run the ball. He can throw the ball. He can take his time. He can go back he can stay healthy, because he's not going to have to run around and do the crazy things behind a terrible offensive line like he's had in the past. He's also got a really good defense as well now. So I think it's a great situation for him, and it's a great opportunity for Bill to say, look at me, I'm going to win without Tom, and we're going to be just fine.
I think so too. We talked about it a few months back about whether or not this year would prove whether it was Brady or Belichick, or if it was a combination, if they both struggled or if they both did well, if it was going to be the combination of the two. But in order for Belichick to even have a fighting chance in that conversation, he had to have a quarterback. And a lot of people have said that any decent quarterback would do well in that system behind that line. Sonja, do you think that Cam is up to, I hate to say Belichick standards, but you know what I mean? Because he's you don't speak out of line. You just don't, we're not rocking to music at practice, and that's kind of Cam. Or do you think Cam is maybe exactly what they need right now?
Cam might be exactly what they need right now. I think one thing that I've kind of thought about is, everybody's been like, well, either Belichick or Brady, they won't, they're both going to be terrible. But I think, what if they're both good? And I think Cam gives them a chance to be good. And, to show, like you said, to show that Belichick, is the genius that we all thought. I think he's the perfect stopgap. If he can stay healthy, I think this gives them time to kind of plan for the future. And Cam is a talent. He is good. If he is healthy and working out like he is, I think that, they might have some butting of heads because Cam is a personality. But I mean, Tom was too. Let's not say that he wasn't, but Tom's a personality too. So granted, Cam's a little bit more flamboyant, but I think that there might be some bumping of heads at the beginning, but I think they'll understand, and I think Belichick respects Cam enough to bring him in and to, let him work.
Right.
So I think it's going to be good.
But listening to Cam's former teammates talk, all that flamboyance and stuff was outside the locker room. It was off the field. In the locker room, he was all business. He was a team player. He was a leader. And I think that will matter more to Bill that he behaves himself in the facility than what he does outside.
And he has, you know, like he's never, knock on wood, I mean, outside of his college years, but he's behaved himself in the NFL. He has.
He has. And yet we can't forget the Cam Newton with the towel over his head on the sidelines, you know, pouting a little bit. And we can't forget that those things happened with him too, but that was early. I think that he's really matured. I think this situation is going to really mature him quite a bit. And you know what? People like him because of his wacky personality. And so, I mean, we have to admit that strong personalities other than Brady's and probably Gronk's never really sat well with Belichick, you know, Michael Bennett was there. That didn't last very long. We've had some other tries there, but at the same time, I don't think they would have made this step had they not addressed that internally, at least. So right. I think this is smart. And we have to remember, you know, they just worry about Cam being injured all the time. He wasn't injured all the time. It's only been of late, and he never fully healed. And I think now that he's had all this time off, and it could be a lot more time off, as we'll discuss later on, but I think that that's going to just do nothing but help him. And he looks great. He looks like he's in shape. So
I would just love to be at, you know, their first press conference with actual media there and ask Cam if he's learned his routes. Because, you know, it's important to Cam that we all know routes. Yes. And I just want to make sure he knows what routes his receivers are going to be running for him in New England.
I still have that hat. You know, that was one thing someone was saying, oh, you know, Cam's such a good guy. He does great things in the community. And there was a little clap back from a couple of the female media members who are like, he also makes fun of women who know what's talking about football. But I think that some of that has changed. Hopefully this will learn him, you know, teach a lesson. And really, Belichick doesn't care about crap like that. He just wants talent on the field. So we'll see. All right.
Your job.
So let's move on just a little bit. We're going to talk about so the NFL. Supposedly there is a report that the NFL suggested, the NFLPA told its members today that the NFL has suggested or proposed that the players put 35% of their salary, their annual salary, into escrow, which is the wrong word. That's not what it is. Escrow means something completely different. That means the NFL can't touch it unless that is what they mean. And then that doesn't make any sense for this year. My initial reaction was that I laughed. I was like, so you want them to endanger their lives and their family by playing during a pandemic for less money? Like I couldn't, but there's to help out the owners who are going to be losing revenue. I could go off, but I decided to pose it as a question to you guys. You know, baseball, they had to, you know, renegotiate because there's going to be less games. So, you know, there's going to be some money. MLS did the exact same thing. I think hockey did too, to a certain extent, but they already, NBA and hockey already had a good chunk of their season. So that's a little different. What do you guys think about this? Is it the player's responsibility to, I hate say, give an insurance policy to these owners in a very weird year? Sonia, let's start with you.
I don't think it's their responsibility. I think, I understand it kind of. I mean, obviously coming from my work situation, I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's a little bit different, you know? Mm-hmm. It's not like these guys can't afford it, you know, and maybe they do have to do a little bit different. Now, if them doing this helps so that they don't have to lay off, you know, somebody who needs the work, who needs the benefits or whatever, then, you know, maybe. But then also not every single NFL player is making, you know, the $400 million contracts and stuff like that. So you've got that to think about. What about
your,
too.
You know, your vet minimums and your, you know,
exactly
minimums? That's a lot of, I mean, it's a lot of money to the big dogs too, but that's a lot of money to those lower levels. Yeah,
it is.
Practice squad too. I mean, they make anyway.
It's tough. It's a tough situation. I understand, but I don't think it needs to be done.
Kate, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure the Kansas City Chiefs players are all going to say no. If you can afford to give Pat Mahomes nearly $500 million, you can pay me my money. It would be nice if they exempted the practice squad and the guys making league minimum from this. And it would be nice if they phrased it almost like if they explained it a little more clearly on if this is this just a temporary reduction for the season, or is this like a layaway plan? We're going to cut you back 30% on the off chance that we have to cut the season short and we're going to miss games and we're going to do that. But if we actually get a full season in playoffs, then you will get that money back at the end of the year. Because that I could understand, saying, you know what, we'll pay you 30% less each week. And then if the season's cut short, you'll get your checks through what the rest of the season would have been.
Okay. Okay.
But we're just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that would make sense to me. But they're not really being clear on if this is flat out a pay cut or if you could earn this back if things go really well. And if certain things happen, you'll get that 30% back. They're not saying that. And that's what the players are going to want to know. They just signed that CBA and they're kicking themselves for it now. And so I can't imagine they're going to want to give the owners an inch on anything at this point.
Well, you know, I look at it this way, you know, my other job is I work in a hospital. So does Sonja. And, you know, when all of this hit our hospitals, you know, money hit hard for our hospitals. Our hospital was almost shut down. And they didn't ask me to take a pay cut. The CEO and the vice presidents and all of them, they took a 35% pay cut. They didn't ask anything of us. They did that. And so it makes you wonder, it's like, really, the irritated side of me, the grumpy side of me says, really, owners, you don't make enough money. And so you can't even take a hit for a year and then make it back in lowering the cap next year or whatever it may be, you know, that you make it that way. Or was it just not explained well? Are we rushing through this stuff way too fast? Are we not having good, thorough conversations, you know? And I, you know, there's a lot of animosity between the players and the owners already most of the time. So I just don't think this was a very smart move by the owners. But maybe it was to start negotiation. Maybe it was, okay, you don't want to do 35%. Will you do 25? Maybe we'll do 20. Just something with the other, you know, caveats put in there of whether or not they'll get it back or not. I think what is happening, in my opinion, is that they're expecting to not have a full season. They are expecting for something to change, especially with the players not wanting to do the 2 preseason games, which we're going to talk about next. You know, I think that they're already kind of preparing for that at this point. Yeah.
So. What surprises me is the NFL, and this is going to be the second time this year they've done something that I just thought was completely boneheaded. They've actually been pretty good at marketing themselves and handling their image and that kind of thing. But you had the video from the players about social injustice that Roger Goodell immediately had to respond to because he got caught behind that. You know what I mean? He didn't get to get ahead of it and spin it. He got caught and had to deal with it. And it feels like this is the response they came up to the letter from J.C. Treader from the NFLPA saying, you know, we play a game where we risk being injured every week, but now we risk bringing a disease home to our loved ones and we risk dying from this. And so their legitimate concerns about their health was addressed with okay, but can you take a 35% pay cut?
Yeah,
it just feels
it was a bad idea.
Yeah. Is that how to say, you know what I mean?
It felt icky.
And this is typically not, Goodell's usually better at handling things like this and spinning them. And this is twice now that I just feel like what they're putting out to the public is just not making them look good at all. There's nobody taking the owner's sides right now. All the fans are taking the player sides.
Right. Which doesn't always happen, as we well know. A lot of times, you know, that the fans get behind the team instead of the players. And there has been a shift this year because I think that and you know, it was funny. I was having this conversation on Twitter and someone chimed in and said, what, is someone going to have to die before, you know, they quit pushing these players? You know, we've discovered with the MLS tournament, there's one team has already completely bailed on it. Another one is about to, because they have 8 players that are sick. And so it's like, is that what's going to have to happen? Are we going to have to see? And the answer is yes, because until the hammer drops, they're still going to be pushing for normalcy. So let's talk about pushing for normalcy in a little bit. You know, the NFL, you know, agreed that maybe 4 preseason games was not the best idea, nor was the Hall of Fame game this year. So they were canceling those. But the NFLPA came out and the players don't want to play any preseason games at all. They want to they laid out, there was a schedule on Twitter. It was like 6 weeks of this, 21 weeks of strengthening, you know, only 5 or 6 weeks of practice, and only 3 of them were going to be padded and this, that, and the other, and straight into week 1. I read that and I thought, good God, football is going to be bad this year. it is not going to be good until November. And it takes some teams, the Seahawks are the perfect example, about 5 games to kind of get in a groove as it is.
Yeah.
So you take away the rest of that, and then you add in, it seemed not logical from a football standpoint, but from a health standpoint, it made total sense. Why are we putting 2 meaningless games, 3 meaningless games where they don't count for anything, and people could get infected, they could get sick, that sort of thing on top of it. I was a little surprised, though, that the players were wanting such short what do they call it, warm-up time, they're to get back acclimated. That didn't make a lot of sense to me. It was really confusing. How do you guys feel? I know a lot of people think preseason games are stupid, but I think of those rookies who need to learn how to play in the NFL, and that's what those are for.
Yeah, part of the argument was they wanted really 30 more days of training camp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For me, I don't need any preseason games. I don't know how you're going to do your roster cuts down to 53 without seeing them in action. It's going to be almost like the draft. We didn't have pro days, so you're not going to see these guys in actual games. So you're going to have to use what you're seeing in practice and that kind of stuff in their college film to help you make determinations on roster cuts. What I think would be nice is if they said, okay, we're going to wipe out the preseason games, but you do have permission to set up 2 scrimmages. And if you have a team in your state where you don't have to leave your state, you contact the other team and then say, okay, for the week 2 of when the preseason would have been, one of the teams will travel and we'll do, 10 plays each twice, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll do it's just some kind of a scrimmage format. Because to your point, those rookies have not seen an NFL professional football player at full speed come at them the way another team will. You can't simulate that with your own team, I don't think. I think you need another team.
Well, no, because
and
then don't hurt anybody. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
then you'd have 2 weeks to quarantine, and then you could do something for week 4, and then you'd have 2 weeks before week 1, so you'd have some bracing in there. But if they decide there's going to be none of that at all, it's going to lend the owners a little more weight to that 30% pay cut, because now you've taken 4 games out of the 20 games that you were supposed to play. So they could negotiate down to 20% and argue you didn't play 20% of your games.
Yeah.
So they've got to consider that aspect as well.
Sonja, I look at
I'd watch a scrimmage. If they put it on Sunday afternoon football, I would
watch all of it.
I was about to say, I think we're all at the...
I should be taking vacation days to go to training camp this week. And there's no training. I don't know what to do with myself in July without training camp.
I know.
So I would watch a scrimmage on my TV.
I was about to say, I think all of us are there now. We watch a scrimmage.
So for sure.
Yeah,
but
it's not just me now. We're all desperate.
Right. I think, though, think about how many players would not have made a team if there weren't for preseason. I mean, there are so many, and big name players. Look at all those undrafted free agents. They have a chance to get in there. I mean, it makes you wonder. Now we can hope that that the coaches saw enough in their Zoom practice meeting. It's like, come on. And then
they'd have to do something with an expanded roster, wouldn't you think? You can't be to 53 by week 1 if you can't even. You have to be able to stay at 99. I would say at least until week 6. And so what we'd see is a lot of really bad fourth quarters with them trying to, if somebody's down by 14 or something, being like, you know what, this is a throwaway season now. Let me get some of these guys in there so that I can see what they can do and get them some reps. And it could be an interesting first 4 or 5 weeks of the season.
This is
an interesting season
to bail the whole thing. It's just another argument to bail on the whole thing this year.
It is. I mean, because
I'm not arguing.
Yeah. You say that, but then, also, what if somebody gets sick? So you have your ragtag team already, and then now, like I love to say, you're down to your 3rd string quarterback and stuff like that because they're sick. And, there's no getting around being sick.
But it's not just your quarterback. It's
I know.
You have an offensive tackle test positive, and there's 6 guys on the line who now have to be quarantined for 2 weeks, plus whoever else they were with in practice. So what? I'm bringing an entire offensive line from the practice squad up.
You can't have a second whole team.
That's what it is. It's the replacements. Washington can become the Washington Sentinels, and it'll be the movie The Replacements all over again, because that's where we're going to have the guy at my grocery store is going to be the left guard for my team, because you could lose an entire unit if one person tests positive and they've got to go home.
Easily.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your offensive line played against your defensive line. They were at,
they're ahead of
don't
them.
get me
And
started.
Now there's
there
10
you
of them.
go.
Can't do it. I
Right?
can't do it. I get
I
too
mean,
worked up.
that's the biggest thing that I think is it, and it's just going to be trash football, you guys, if they keep it up. I mean, I don't mean to sound bad, but if you're getting, if you're not getting the chance to get these kids playing, and somebody gets sick, then yeah, it's
Mhm.
not going to be good.
Right.
It's not going to be good quality football. But I think at this point, everybody's still just clamoring for any kind of football.
I
And
know.
what do you do with all these guys who are in contract years in any of the sports? It's
now,
your
I did
last year
read
on your contract, and how do you prove
this
how
year
much
wouldn't
money I'm
count.
worth next year?
Yeah.
And what's the market value for everybody going to be if the
Mhm.
owners have lost money this year in all the sports? I'm still shocked at the Mahomes deal, that they think that's what the
Right.
market is for him. I'm like,
Right.
ain't nobody going to be able to afford to pay that for anybody anytime soon.
We have about 9 minutes left, and so I want to talk about
that's right.
Patrick
Forgot.
Mahomes'.
You got my Trout money.
I know. So I want to talk about this contract. So when it first came out, I thought it was a hoax. I was like, who paid someone to lie about this? And I thought that someone was just, because it was like the guy at the grocery store leaked it to someone that I was like, right? So anyway, so we look at this contract. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is getting $500 million over a 10-year contract, which actually is 12 years because he has 2 years left of his rookie contract. And my first reaction was, who else is going to play on the field? Because that's all the money. And then I kind of looked back over and I thought, oh my God, Patrick Mahomes has screwed himself. We haven't seen 10-year deals in a decade because everyone learned that they sucked for the player. The players usually outplayed their contract. And so then they couldn't get out of them and they were stuck. And so the players stopped doing that. And then you start to look into these details a little bit more. And I understand the ridiculous amount of money that Patrick Mahomes' agent is now going to get because there's a no trade clause without his permission and agreement. And I read that he has to agree to the team. Okay. And then there is an injury clause. He gets paid even if he's injured with these different injuries. There's this amount and that amount. And then I thought to myself, my whole thought process changed. Was, what is Kansas City doing? They have locked their entire bank account down to this kid for 12 years, who I love Patrick Mahomes. And you guys know I'm all about go get your money. I'm all about it. The owners make too much. The players deserve more. I'm all about that. But I know that the Kansas City Chiefs have an amazing front office. And I know that they do wonderfully. And I know Andy Reid is an amazing coach. And it's like everyone keeps saying it's a win-win, win-win. I'm like, okay, but who's winning in 6 years? That's the question. Who's winning when his cap hit becomes $62 million? Right. A cap hit.
And they lose free agents because they can't afford to keep them because of what the cap hit is. And so they have to keep bringing. Is he good enough for them to keep bringing in first and second year players every year? Because that's all they can afford.
And that's what the conversation I kind of got into today. I was like, I think what's happening is they're trying to recreate the Belichick New England model, where they had Tom Brady and they had one or two steady players. And, he rotated kids and people in and out of there, 1-year contracts, rookie contracts, in and out, in and out, in and out. That team changed constantly. And I feel like that's what they're trying to do here. I don't know that they'll be able to do it. And the argument is, well, the money's going to go up every year. The cap is going to get huge and crazy. Well, next year, I bet that cap goes down. Well, he'll still be on his rookie contract, Dayna. But you can't sign anyone else long-term because in 3 years, you're screwed. And I know then they announced, they put out there, because everyone was questioning this. Kansas City put out there, they said, well, we have things in the contract that will allow us to move money around, which basically they're going to be signing bonuses and things that kind of open up their cap. I just don't know the why of it, unless they were both, the team and the player were trying to, and what Patrick Mahomes came out of his mouth a few months ago or even last year was, I want the biggest contract in sports history. Well, you got it. But now that you got it, is that a good idea? I don't know. But I like the kid so much, but I don't know. And after 2 years being a quarterback, yes, he's won a Super Bowl. Yes, he was MVP. I get it. But you know what? One wrong hit and you're done playing football, and they still have to pay you $300 million.
Right. And if you're Travis Kelce,
How do you
your next
feel?
contract's
Chris
not going to,
Jones.
yeah. All these
Gotta be
guys,
pissed.
you're going to work out your contract and you're not staying. So is your agent already talking to other teams about who's going to make bids for you when you go? Because I don't know what he's like personally, Pat Mahomes. So
Oh, he's
I don't
a
know
sweetheart. He's so
if
sweet.
he's,
Yes, he's a
if they
good
just
kid.
love him so much and he's
Mhm.
not going to become, arrogant or anything like that with the money, but it's
Mm-mm.
still, players are weird about their money. And I don't know how that'll affect the psyche of the other people on his team, knowing they're limited in what they can make because of the commitment that's been made to Mahomes.
And you know that, and Sonja, I know that you know this because, you had the whole, Calvin Johnson thing going on and all of that with the Lions. But you know that front face, congratulations, good for you. He deserves every dime. And I will tell you, I've met Patrick Mahomes. He is the sweetest kid and he is beloved. But behind the scenes, I think you're right. Don't you think, Sonja, that eventually they're going to be like, Chris Jones, I'm not playing until you extend me. Well, I can give you 1 year because after that, you're too expensive.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what's going to happen. And that was what I was thinking. I was like, well, who's going to play for you guys now? Like, what's going to happen? Like, it makes sense now. And like you said, I'm all about getting your money, get your money. But does it make good financial sense? And it's not my money. It's not coming out of my pocket. So I don't care.
Right.
But, what's the franchise going to look like in 5 years, in 3 years? Who are they going to be able to have? Like, what's going to happen? That's my thought. Just like long term, it's not going to end up very well.
And I agree. I'm not a financial guru. And yes, these people are way smarter than me. I'm not trying to play armchair GM. But what we've seen in the past is when contracts like this come down, at some point they're regretted. They just are. And, whether that be Matt Ryan's contract, whether that be, Kirk Cousins' contract, whatever it is. And yes, Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback. This has nothing to do with his skill level.
No.
That's not what I'm talking about at all here. It's like at some point, for some reason, and it's probably not going to be him, this will be regretted. And it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens. We also have to remember that Tom Brady, and that dynasty that they had in New England, Tom Brady was always well underpaid. He never made the money he should have. He should have made so much more money for what he did. And that kept his team alive, because I really truly believe, as hard as it is for me to say nice things about Tom Brady, is that winning Super Bowls were more important than the money to him. And I think that is something that having that legacy, having that dynasty was more important. And I'm not saying it's not Patrick Mahomes, but it's hard to see that with, because the Chiefs didn't just walk in and say, here, we're going to give this to you. You don't even have to negotiate. Here you go, kid. You're great. You know what I mean? So there was something else going on there.
Yep.
But I agree. But kudos to him. Congratulations. You beat Mike Trout. Thank God. Because nobody wanted Mike Trout to be at the top of that anymore.
For 10% of the games.
Right.
Exactly.
His per game fee is insane.
Yes, I did read that. I did retweet that quote that said someone who makes $50,000 from their entire career will make less than he does in a single game. And that is a little heart-wrenching, but we have to remember how much money he's going to make those owners. There is always a quid pro quo, and I don't ever feel bad for an owner having to spend some money. So, all right, ladies. Well, this was really fun. I'm glad that we get to do this. Everybody, we're going to post this up on our YouTube. Give it a listen and check us out. And, of course, check out OurTurfFootballFB.com. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.